Okay, so we're going to continue on talking about factors that affect the U.S. economy. And we were talking about factors mentioned that World War II brought the United States out of the Depression. 9/11, you guys are too young to remember 9/11 or when it actually happened. I'm sure you've all heard of it, but that's when terrorists flew the two planes into the World Trade Centers, and then another plane flew into the Pentagon, and then a fourth plane was supposed to fly. They think into the Capitol or to the White House, but ended up going down in a field in Pennsylvania. Immediately after that happened, the economic impact on the United States was huge. Uh, the economy just crashed. People quit spending money. People were extremely fearful that this was the beginning of a large number of potential terrorist attacks, and people did not want to spend money. The automobile industry was hit the hardest, and so one of the things that the automobile industry did was they slashed their interest rates on auto loans, and in fact, some auto manufacturers, if you bought a brand new vehicle, you could get it with 0% interest. You would not pay any interest on the loan. On others, used vehicles, it might only be 1.9% interest. I mean, interest rates that were just unheard of. But that's what had to happen. I can remember the day that that happened. Um, we had a cross country meet, and as I was driving the team back into town, there were there's at that time there were three gas stations in town, and our route back into town took us by every one of them. And here in the small town of Pierce, Nebraska, cars were lined up for 3 blocks to get fuel because people were afraid. There was just a huge fear, a huge panic that spread not just across this town, not just across this state, but across this entire country, that Middle Eastern countries were responsible for doing this, and they were going to quit sending the United States oil, and because of that, we weren't going to be able to make fuel, and so people were trying to get as much fuel as they could, and in some cases, gas station owners took advantage of it, and they jacked up their prices big time so they could try to make more money. Now, eventually, those gas prices came down very dramatically, and those station owners that increased the price of fuel, they got in trouble for it because you can't take advantage of a situation like that to try to make money. So they actually did get in trouble for that. Okay, we're going to be moving on to Section 3 now, and the government's role in the U.S. economy. And we've looked at this a little bit already, and we've looked at a lot of these things already, so that's why we're actually going through this pretty quick and getting 2 sections done at once. But we're going to identify goals of government regulation, examine how fiscal policy is used to influence the economy, and analyze how the Federal Reserve uses monetary policy to influence the economy. So first of all, protecting workers. The government protects workers with things like the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Basically, what this means is that when someone goes and applies for a job, the employer has to look at all of the applicants on an equal basis, and they cannot use something like age, race, gender, religion as a reason why they do not hire someone. They have to hire an applicant based on their ability to do the job and nothing else. And if a person does feel like they've been discriminated against, either on their job or in the course of applying for a job, the EEOC is who you contact. OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, and I've mentioned them a little bit before, but they go around to all types of places. They'll go to restaurants, they may come to this school, they will go to construction sites, and they will make sure that all the proper precautions are being taken to protect the workers so that they are not injured on the job. Because what happens is that if a worker does get injured on a job, and if it is the fault of the employer then is going to probably have to pay for all medical expenses, and they could even face a lawsuit because people are so quick sue each other nowadays in our society. The Food and Drug Administration, they make sure that when someone is purchasing food, for example, that all the nutritional information is on the package, what the ingredients are, and you probably do know by now that when you read the ingredients on a package, the ingredient that is listed first, that is what that item contains the most of. So for example, when you look at the ingredients in a box of cereal, you're going to see sugar listed with the majority of cereals as the second or third item, which means that sugar is probably what makes up more of that cereal than just about everything else. The Consumer Product Safety Commission, we've talked about this before. Remember when we talked about the lawn darts and that you don't see those out there anymore? There's a reason why you don't see them out there. They've been deemed too dangerous. And then the Securities and Exchange Commission, we just talked about this in the last chapter, and they oversee the stock market to make sure that people aren't taking advantage of situations within the stock market. And then you have the Environmental Protection Agency. Their job is to limit negative effects on the environment from industry or from any type of business. And then the other role that the government has in our U.S. economy is to encourage competition. And we've talked about competition at length in previous chapters. So we're going to move on to our next slide of notes. Okay, the government implements its fiscal policies in three ways. Number one is taxes, and we've talked about taxes time and time again. The federal government will lower taxes so people will spend money, and they will raise taxes to slow spending, just like the Federal Reserve will raise interest rates to slow spending, and they will lower interest rates to get people to spend money. Government spending, the government will increase spending to try to create more jobs and spend less to slow the economy. Well, how does the government increase spending to try to create more jobs? The government might encourage businesses. They might offer loans for businesses to expand. Now, obviously, if the government's going to be paying for those loans, that's money out of their pocket. But people take advantage of that a lot of times. If it's the government offering this, they are offering it at low interest rates. So businesses expand, they create more jobs. More jobs means more people are working. Those people have more money. If people have money, they spend money, and boom, the economy's flourishing. They can have the public transfer of payments. The government offers people money while they are not working. We just talked about this in the last chapter, unemployment insurance. You're working, you get laid off for whatever reason, you can collect unemployment insurance. The thing is now, though, after what happened in 2008 and 2009 when our unemployment rate was up near 12%, so think of 12%, that means 1 out of every 9 people are not working. That's quite a few. Those people can get money from the government, but the government is just not going to let those people sit there and do nothing. They want them to be a productive member of society. So the government has now implemented rules that will only allow you to collect unemployment insurance for a certain period of time. When these policies are used, timing is very important, and it may take months or even years before the results can be seen. So, for example, the government, in reaction to what happened in 2008 and 2009, wherein our economy went in the pooper, the government started to implement policies. Well, it wasn't until 2012 when our economy really started to turn around, and it just so happened that was an election year, and of course President Obama ran for re-election, and he used the economy's turnaround as part of his campaign as to why he should be elected for 4 more years. Government's role in the U.S. economy continued. Monetary policy. This determines the amount of money available in the economy at any given time. An easy money policy increases the amount of money in the money supply, and tight money policy is going to do the exact opposite, and it's going to decrease it. What are tools of monetary policy? One is called open market operations, the buying and selling of government securities, government bonds, things like that. I talked about U.S. savings bonds that, those can be purchased. They're a very safe investment. The discount rate, the interest rate that the Federal Reserve charges to banks, and then the reserve requirement, the amount of money that banks must have available in their vaults or in the Federal Reserve accounts. All of these things are going to affect monetary policy. Okay, that does it for Section 3. Again, we got through it really quick, but a lot of this stuff we've already talked about before, so that's why I didn't spend a lot of time with this now. We're through with this. We only have one more section to cover, and then boom, we're done with this chapter.